love the Santa Ana snack market here in Merida. It's a place for some pretty serious noshing. In fact, you could probably say that it's the snack market equivalent of a tapas bar. And this is the kind of food that you can get when you come here. This is a fresh-made corn tortilla that's dipped in a pumpkin seed sauce that's infused with that herby epazote, then rolled around some chopped egg and dashed with a little roasted tomato sauce, a little more egg on the top. Now, does that sound kind of contemporary to you? Maybe a little nuevo Latino? Well, this isn't the creation of some modern local chef. No, it's way older than that. In fact, it's way older than Merida. It goes all the way back to the Mayan. They call this dish papanzules, the food of the nobles. And as old as it is, it's still being made today. It's still being enjoyed in restaurants and homes and snack markets like this one. Which, if you think about it, says something pretty amazing about Merida. I mean, this place has seen a lot. It's been home to a pretty diverse group of people. And the food, it tells the whole delicious story. Paseo Montejo is the main boulevard through Merida. Montejo for Francisco de Montejo, the Spanish conquistador that founded the city back in 1542 on the ancient Mayan city of Xcancijo. Now, when the Spaniards arrived here, well, they couldn't even pronounce Xcancijo, so they called it Tijo. And they were dazzled by this brilliant white city of stuccoed buildings. Well, it reminded them of the Roman ruins in Merida, Spain, so they called the place Merida, and they made it the capital of the Yucatan. Well, there's no gold here. There's very few natural resources. So the city grew pretty slowly over the next several centuries. Well, until the late 1800s, when another kind of gold was discovered, a kind of green gold, henequen, that plant that the Mayans had used for centuries to make rope out of. Well, the Industrial Revolution brought not only a huge demand for rope, but also the technology for processing massive amounts of henequen fiber into that rope that they needed so badly. Well, plantations just popped up everywhere. The plantation owners became millionaires, and they rechristened Merida the Paris of Mexico. This was their Champs-Élysées. Well, they sent their kids to Europe to go to school. They came back with all kinds of sophisticated old world ideas. And to this very day, Merida is one of the most European-looking and sophisticated cities, not to mention that it's a place of great cultural diversity. Do you know in this town there are more PhDs than anywhere else in Mexico? And their sophisticated ideas just live right alongside the vital Mayan traditions that have been around since pre-Hispanic times. Muchas gracias. Which explains this. Pasta de pepito, or pumpkin seed paste. And well, certainly by the looks of it, it's a major staple here in the Yucatan. Now, when you buy it here, you have two choices. You can either get the denser, richer version of it that's made from hulled pumpkin seeds, or you can choose the lighter version, a little more powdery, that's made with the pumpkin seeds that still have their hulls on them. Of course, that would have a lot more fiber in it. And speaking of nutrition, well, the Mayans and the Aztecs just millennia ago had realized that the pumpkin seed is a nutritionally dense superfood, and together with beans and corn, they made it one of the cornerstones of the pre-Columbian diet. But of course today, most people here in the Yucatan, well, they'll buy their pumpkin seeds in the paste form. In old days, well, it was ground to a paste by hand on one of those stone metates. But today, of course, most of that grinding is done in small local mills. in little mills like this one. There are lava rock grinding stones in here. In the hopper, toasted pumpkin seeds. Well, in this case, it's mixed with epazote, that really pungent herb for making the classic sauce for papazules. But when this mixture comes out of here, it comes out in a sort of dense paste. And when you taste it, that is one of the most elemental flavors in the entire world. Now let me show you what you can do with ground pumpkin seeds at home. Now one of the all-time great ways to enjoy that nutty flavor of this magic seed is in a Mayan dip called Sikil Pak. Sikil for pumpkin seed and pak for tomato, the two primary ingredients. When you start preparing it, you need to toast the pumpkin seeds. I've put them here in a skillet, an ungreased skillet over medium heat, and I'm going to toss them around for 5 minutes or so until they've toasted from flat to round and darkened to a golden color. Now the tomatoes get roasted. I just put them on a griddle back here. On a piece of foil, it makes for easy cleanup. And once they've gotten completely softened, they'll be blackened in spots. Then they're ready to be cooled a little bit, peeled, chopped, along with some habanero chili, some cilantro, and red onion. The toasted pumpkin seeds go into the food processor. Top goes on, and then we're going to reduce them to a paste. Now I'm going to dribble in about 1/4 cup of water to help facilitate making that paste. Now our pumpkin seed paste gets scraped into a bowl. And then I'm going to scrape in the habanero, roasted tomato, cilantro, and red onion. Work it all together until it's thoroughly combined. Okay, I'm going to season it now with fresh lime juice and a good sprinkling of salt. Pumpkin seeds really like that salt. Mix it all together. Chips. I think this might need chips. A little cilantro to go over the top of it. And just like papazules, Sikil Pak is totally Mayan, yet it's a part of modern Merida. And like chips and dips all over the world, it goes great with beer. Salud. Now, when the Spaniards arrived in Merida, the diet was basically from vegetable proteins, like corn, beans, and pumpkin seeds, plus a little bit of wild-caught fish and game. But that didn't cut it for them. I mean, these guys were big-time carnivores, so they brought over all their domesticated animals, the pork and the beef cattle and the chickens, and well, look what happened. Gracias. With a little freshly ground pork, we're ready to start on our Merida food history roller coaster ride. It's got more than just a few surprises, so fasten your seatbelt and let's get cooking. In Mexico, they often call ground meat carne picada, from the verb picar, which means to finely chop or mince. It also gives us the word picadillo, that ground or chopped meat savory preparation that's oftentimes flavored with Spanish ingredients like olives and capers, but also with a good amount of tomato. So if you want to make Yucatan style preparation of picadillo, then you'll start first by making a really good tomato sauce. So in the blender, I'm putting some onion. Now I'm going to add to that the classic yellow banana peppers that they have in the Yucatan, the one that they call xcatic chilies. And I'm just going to chop those up roughly, seeds and all, because we're going to make a smooth puree out of this. Those will go into the blender with tomatoes. You could make this dish with 3 pounds of fresh tomatoes, all sort of roughly chopped here. Or you could buy some canned tomatoes to work into this dish. I like the ones that are fire roasted for a lot of good depth of flavor. Now you'll see that as we blend this, it's all going to compress and you'll find a smooth, beautiful tomato sauce puree. Once that's as smooth as you can get it with the blender, of course if your blender's smaller, you're going to have to do this in a couple of different batches. You want to put it into a pan that is filmed with a little bit of oil, just some vegetable oil, and I've got the pan over a medium heat. We're going to let that cook for a little while until it thickens all up there. Now while that's cooking away, I'm going to start the meat mixture. And I have some ground pork here. It's coarsely ground pork that I'm going to put into a large skillet along with some water, just enough water to cover. And this may seem like a really odd thing to do, but the reason we're putting the water in there is because I want to create a nice rich broth to use in another preparation. I'll explain that as we continue down this road. Now I've got some herbs and spices that are going to go in here. I've got black pepper, allspice, garlic, salt, and cloves. Recently ground cloves. They're very aromatic there. And I'm going to put that into the skillet there. And we're going to let these cook for about 20 minutes here now over about a medium heat until that pork is completely cooked through and the broth is rich. Now the cooked pork I'll pour into a colander here so that we can save the rich broth. The pan will go back onto the heat. The pork itself will go back into the pan. And then I'm going to add some of the cooked down tomato mixture here. Look how beautiful that is there. So about 1.5 cups of it will go in with the pork. You can just imagine what the smell of that pork was like in the kitchen as it was cooking. Now we got the other flavoring ingredients to put in there. Capers, the Spanish capers. I'm going to put about 1/4 cupful of them in there. Then we've got raisins. They'll add a nice sweet touch. And boy, that's a very traditional addition to the classic picadillo. And finally, we have some green olives, manzanilla type olives. We need about 1/2 cup of them cut into small pieces. Okay, so far, so good. I think by the smell of this, so far, incredibly good. So good that I'd just like to get a little taste of this stuff. I love little tacos of picadillo. Now here's where the roller coaster ride starts. You see, this picadillo is similar to the kind of stuffing that you'd find inside of one of those classic Mexican dishes, chiles rellenos. Or if you're in Merida, it's the kind of stuffing you'd find inside cheese. Yeah, Edam cheese. You know, the stuff with the red waxed exterior? This stuff? Well, for more than a century, this cheese and pork picadillo filling have been the two main components in one of the most classic dishes of the Yucatecan kitchen. Stuffed cheese, queso relleno.
Queso relleno.
Ay, qué bonito. Exquisite. So let's go back to the heyday of Merida, when all of those henequen millionaires were shuttling back and forth to Europe. Well, it seems that there was this ship that had gone to the Dutch Antilles. Well, it got caught in a Caribbean storm and ran aground in the Yucatan. And in its hold was this huge supply of Edam cheese. I know this sounds like a made-up story, but they swear that it's true. Because Edam cheese actually does really well at sea. It's kind of dry and a little bit salty. Well, the Edam cheese finally made its way to Merida, and all of those Meridano Europhiles, they loved the stuff. In fact, they thought its sharp flavor went so beautifully with the strong flavors of the local cuisine that before long, all of those ships exporting henequen were returning with enormous loads of Edam cheese. Now, the best part of a cheese like that is this sort of creamy center. But then, what do you do with all the rest of it? Well, the inevitable answer to that is that you stuff it. And hey, what's better than a wonderful pork picadillo? Then you could wrap it all up and poach it and slice it into wedges and serve it smothered with a creamy white sauce and splashed with a little tomato sauce. In other words, you could make queso relleno. But here in Chicago, I've come up with an easier way to make queso relleno that avoids all of that scraping and hollowing and stuffing and poaching. You know what I use? I use a 20-ounce round or thereabouts of Chihuahua cheese. You know, it's even oozier than the classic Edam cheese that's used down in Yucatan. I cut it in half, and then each half gets cut in 6 thin slices. Now I'm going to layer those into some baking dishes. A couple of the slices go on the bottom there. A portion of that beautifully savory, aromatic pork picadillo. And then a couple more slices of the Chihuahua cheese. And once all 6 of them have been assembled, we'll put those into an oven, heated to about 350 degrees, and cook them for about 15 to 20 minutes until they're all bubbly and starting to brown. Oh, but before those come out of the oven, I still have one preparation to make. I know this is like a celebration dish with a lot of different parts. Remember that broth that we had from cooking the pork? Well, I'm going to put it into a small saucepan here, and then I'm going to make it into the classic Yucatecan col. That's a Mayan word for a kind of white sauce. I've got a little flour here, and I'm going to mix it with some water until I get kind of a rough paste out of it. And then I'm going to add that to the broth. This will thicken the broth into a white sauce. I know those of you that are gravy makers know how to do this kind of a thing, though you probably start in a different direction. So we'll scrape that all in there, and then I'm going to whisk it as it comes to a simmer. Remember that it's already got salt in it, but I do have one other ingredient that I'm going to add, and that's a dash of vinegar. Classic addition to the Yucatecan col. When that comes to a simmer, it will thicken, and we'll just keep it warm until we're ready to serve it. Wow, don't those look mouth-watering? Now for the final dressing. We've got that classic Mayan white sauce to splash over the top of it. Some of our tomato yellow chili sauce. My take on the old world, new world, Dutch, Spanish, Meridano, roller coaster ride of a cheese dish. And now for the most thrilling part of all. we are at one of the classic old restaurants in downtown Merida, Alberto's Continental Patio. It's been here since the 60s, but this beautiful old colonial building's been here since 1727. They say it was originally constructed out of rubble from a Mayan pyramid, which I guess kind of takes us right back to where we started, you know, with that ancient Mayan dip, Sikil Pak. Only this dip is Lebanese. Yep, this is baba ganoush made from charcoal grilled eggplant. Now, of course, Alberto's has all of the greatest hits of Yucatecan cuisine on the menu. He's got the pollo pibil wrapped in banana leaves and cooked with achiote, tomato, onion. He's got the classic Mayan tikin chic fish that's grilled over charcoal. But then there's a whole section of Lebanese dishes, like the shish kebab, or the kibbe, the fried kibbe made from cracked bulgur wheat and lamb or beef. And of course, got the good old baba ganoush. I just can't seem to get enough of this stuff. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the 1900s, when the Yucatan was the world's leading producer of that sisal rope. Well, you can imagine, Merida was one of the richest cities in the whole wide world, which brought a whole lot of Lebanese here to seek their fortune. Well, they stayed, and well, that's one of the reasons that so many restaurants and a lot of the street vendors around here have Lebanese food on their menus. Boy, you just gotta love Merida. Most people, when they come to the Yucatan, head straight for the beaches, which I totally understand. It's beautiful there. But I say, don't forget Merida. I mean, it's beautiful here too. Look at this city. It's vital, it's small, it's manageable, and it's just brimming with culture. And it's all about mixing it out. Just think it's Mayan and Spanish, European mestizo, even Lebanese, all swirling together in one big, beautiful dance of flavors, cultures, and traditions.